What's up guys, Noah from Stage 3 Motorsports here, and today I'm going to be showing you how to do an install on one of these kicker substage systems for your F-150. Now, right out of the gate, I do want to clear up some stuff in terms of what years of truck this fits and how it's going to work with different audio systems. So I will say that this system does work from anything from 2015 all the way up to 2020. Now, the caveat there is that the install on a 15 to 17 truck is going to be a little bit different from the install on an 18 to 20 truck. Now, this vehicle we have right here is a 2020 F-150, and it is also an XLT with just like a sport package on it. So it's very bare bones. There was no upgraded audio in this. Everything was factory. There was no sub here to begin with. So that's how we're going to do the install, and I'm going to show how to install it on a truck that would be equivalent. Now, some of this will still be relevant if you do have a Sony system or a B&O or something different in your vehicle, but obviously you're going to have to remove your factory sub. Your wiring is going to look a little bit different as well. And if you consult your kicker manual when you get this, they do have explanations for what wire colors you need to tap or what things are going to be different if you do this on a Sony or a B&O truck. But like I said, we're not going to show that because that's not how this vehicle is equipped. So just know that it does work for the whole slew, but your install may vary. One last thing to consider on top of all of that information is that auto stop start does factor into this, and our 2020 truck here does have auto stop start from factory. What that means is that when you get in the vehicle, you are going to have to manually push that button to turn it off, or else once the truck shuts down at the stoplight, it's also going to turn off your subwoofer, and then it won't reset until you restart the vehicle. That can be a really big annoyance. There are ways to get rid of that if you do like a actual like plug-in delete for the auto stop start, or you go in and tune it out of the vehicle so it doesn't engage. That stuff will work. But in our case, we're just going to hit the button off. That's the simple way to do it. First things first, we're going to come over to the negative terminal on our battery, and we're going to disconnect it just so it's safe. We don't have any current moving through. And you'll notice we have some extra wiring here. These are the harnesses for our rigid lights, so you may not have these on your truck, but not a big deal. Pop that off, and then we'll work on running the actual power wire that's going to go into the cab. Now in your kit, you're gonna have a harness that looks like this, and this is just your regular power harness to connect to the battery. It's got a fuse down here, and then this section will attach on the terminal right there. So we're not gonna connect it right away. I'm just gonna run the wire across the back of the firewall and over to the factory grommet, so that way we can get power. And then once we've got the kit all attached, we'll come back and reconnect this when we reconnect the battery. Now I've got this end of the harness over on the driver's side of the truck by our intake, and what we want to do is kind of come underneath the brake booster and master cylinder and all that with the rest of the wires that are moving towards the grommet in here. So I'll kind of run that down, and then I'll probably poke a wire through from the cab to hook onto this and tug it through that harness with the little hole I already cut. If you don't have a slit in there, you're going to want to take an X-Acto knife and just make a little slice at the top so that way you can get this in. Once you have your power wire through that grommet, you're going to want to take this and the 2-pin connector that's in your kit, and you'll see there's a blue section on the back of that connector where this is going to push through and click into place. So I'm just going to angle it in there, give it some pressure, and you'll hear it click. Now it's locked in, so now we have power through that connector, and we can set this off to the side for the moment. Now we're going to pop out this panel on the side of the dash where it should say F-150 or Super Duty depending on your truck, and you just want to get a pry tool to help pull on this. There's no screws holding it, we just want to bring it out. There we go. Next we're going to pop up the sill plate here along the driver's side. Lastly, we're going to work off this kick panel here, and you just need to get it around the latch for your hood. So if you bring it forward, you can hear the clips pop, and then you're going to have another clip down here where it's attaching. So we'll pop that up. And it should wiggle free just like that. So inside your kick panel, right above this little lever for your hood latch, you're going to have two harnesses. And this part will change a little bit depending on what year of truck you have, but for 18, 19, and 20 F150s, you're gonna wanna unclip this little white harness. So put some pressure on that tab, pull it back. And then in here on this corner, you'll have a plain white wire, and you're also gonna have a white with a brown stripe. Now you wanna be careful because that's also next to a white with an orange stripe, which looks very similar, but you only need the white and brown stripe and the plain white. And with these, we're actually gonna put a wire tap on each one of these to connect to the harness. And I know people are gonna hate that, and I don't love wire taps either, but that's what Kicker provides in the kit. So if you wanna do it differently, you can solder it in. We're gonna use the taps, and that's gonna connect to our harness later. You can see we've got our two little wire taps on here now, so the Kicker harness will plug right into these, which is going to be pretty handy. And it's worth noting that if you wanted, you could put these wire taps elsewhere on this harness. If you chase it down underneath the sill plate, you can find these same colored wires along the bottom, but I figured the lower you tap these in, the more risk there is of water and dirt and slush getting to them where your feet are going in and out. So it's best to kind of do it up high in the kick panel where they're not going to be exposed to the elements as much. So it's going to seem a little weird that we moved to the back of the truck, but we still have everything undone up front. And the reason for that is normally Kicker would tell you to start the wiring from that kick panel and kind of fish it all the way through the truck to the back here where we're going to put the sub. The reason I'm starting back here is that the connectors that go to the sub are pretty large and hard to pull through. So if you start back here and fish the wiring forward, you can actually pull the smaller connectors along the way, and it makes it a little bit easier to get all the wiring through, and you won't have to fight it as much. So we will go back to the front and connect everything, but right now we're gonna pull our seats down so we can get the area open behind the seats where the sub will mount, and then that way we have somewhere to start as we work through these panels to get that wiring through. Now here on the passenger side in the back where it's a single seat, all you have to do is find this tab next to your seatbelt, pull that forward, you'll hear it disconnect, and now that's dropped, and obviously that's where your factory jack and stuff is. But for these seats, it's a little bit harder. For the bench section on the driver's side, it's a little bit trickier. So you're gonna pull your tab where you would normally lift like that to get the bottom of the seat up, but you'll see that it pushes it out up here. Now up here, you're gonna need to fish your hand down, and you'll be able to feel the latch in here, and there's a little tiny round metal tab that you're gonna pull up on. And I find that if you can kind of push with your body, that helps as you pull to kind of get that to pop free. So get a little pressure here. There we go. So now that's free. These are a little bit looser. And then we're gonna bring this bottom section back down. We can lean that forward. Right here is that latch that I was reaching for. So there's a little metal tab on this side. You're just pushing up on that to disconnect the latch. And now we have full access behind the seat. As you can see here, looking at the harness, this end has the big chunky connectors that are multi-pin. That's what's gonna plug in down here to the sub when it's sitting in place. So those will be hard to pull. These little connectors that go up to the front are much smaller and easier to get through body panels. So I'm gonna work on fishing these down through the corner here. We've got a little bit of room there where it'll come through and forward, and we can go down to the sill plate. So as you saw, I pulled the weather stripping off and pulled the sill plate off. So now I have the harness coming through behind this panel, and that way I don't have to remove all of this plastic up here, just fishing it through with the wire worked. So I'm moving the harness down. You're gonna wanna kind of lift a little bit. There you go. So that way this harness is now squeezing into where the sill plate is. And then what we're gonna need to do is obviously continue with our little connector. That's gonna need to feed through back towards the front of the cab, but I'm gonna take another piece of wire just to get it to hook on here and kind of fish it through instead of trying to push the wire. So you can see here, we've got our harness forward. We're back at the kick panel on the driver's side. And you just wanna make sure along your sill plate back here that you got everything tucked in the way you like. But now we're gonna take this end for the power lead, and we're gonna grab that connector from earlier. We're gonna go ahead and plug these two together. So It'll kind of click in right there, and then you're gonna have a red tab that you push in. That just locks that harness so it's not gonna pull apart. Then we also have a little ground end, and so we're gonna kind of bring this up through the dash over to a bolt here that we exposed earlier where we can tie that in so we get a nice solid ground. All right, so you can see threw a couple zip ties in here, got the wiring cleaned up coming back. So now this harness is nice and tucked out of the way. So we have this adapter now that's gonna connect the kicker harness to these wire taps from earlier. And what you're gonna wanna do is take the green one, and the green will go to the plain white. Slip that in here. And then, of course, the brown is gonna go to the white with a brown stripe. Now we just take this end of the adapter and our kicker harness, and we're just gonna click these two together. There you go. And then from here, we can plug the wiring connector back into the truck. Get a nice solid click there. And all we have to do is tie up this wiring out of the way so it's all clean. And we can also put all of these plastic panels back in that we took off earlier. And then from there, move to the back of the truck. Now, since this truck didn't have a factory sub, we've got to cut away some carpet to get to the factory mounts underneath. There is a diagram in your manual. You're gonna need to come about 5 inches out to here. I put a little line of Sharpie in the carpet, and then you're gonna make a square that's, you know, about 2.5 inches tall. And then we'll do the same thing over on the other side once we have this one cut. So we've got our hole cut out here. I probably did a little too big, but we'll just say that that is to exact perfect specifications. Then there's a little bit of black tape. When you peel that up, you'll see there is a threaded factory hole underneath, and that's where our mount's gonna go. So now we just gotta move to the other side. By the jack on this side, you're gonna wanna cut this section out. It's about 4 inches in. I put another mark. Once again, we're gonna get that about as exact as we can. So once you have the sub sitting here on your seat, before you plop it into place, you're gonna wanna attach this wiring harness that we brought back, and there's obviously gonna be 2 connectors to match up. Now, Kicker gives you like just barely enough wiring to get back here, so they're supposed to attach these little plugs to the sub. There's some little holes drilled with Christmas tree clips that pinch them in. I found that one of them basically wasn't gonna clip. The other will fit just barely, so you don't have to push them through there if your wiring doesn't reach, but we'll connect them right now, set this into place, and then we can put the 2 screws in that hold it at the bottom. You can tell that this hole isn't immediately lining up, so you may have to kind of leave the other side a little loose and shift it over and then drop your screw in. A little stubby ratchet would probably be best here, but I don't have one, so I'm just gonna make it do. This bracket up top just clips into 2 slots that are already there. When I set the thing in place, it actually started pushing in on its own, but if they didn't go in all the way, just give it a little pressure on each side and that'll hold the top. So now this whole thing is locked in place, it's plugged in. We can bring our seat back up and then we can work on putting this trim back together. So coming back underneath the hood, we're gonna peel back this little rubber cover for our power terminal and connect the wire right here. All right, and now we can reconnect our ground terminal. All right, guys, that's gonna be a wrap on the install for this Kicker Substage system. Went together pretty nicely, and it's got almost a sort of factory fitment to it back here, so we should have zero issues in the future with this. Now, with all that being said, this is our 2020 giveaway F150, which I didn't mention at the beginning, but this whole truck is being built out and you can win the entire thing, all the mods included. So if you want to learn some more details on that and get yourself entered, we'll have a link down in the description that you can check out that'll shoot you over to our website. It's really simple, definitely worth checking out. And also worth noting, we will have some links in the description to the Substage kits, so if you do want to put one in your F150, you can go ahead and check that out on our website as well. Now, as always, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you next time.